Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you this week. We have our friend Miguel Bifari down in Argentina. He's going to be talking about upcoming events that I'm going to be going to. One is the Industria Cannabis in Argentina coming up November 19th, 20th, and 21st. Then there's also the Expo Cannabis Peru that Mike and I will be going to in December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we'll be talking about that and laws in Argentina and more. We have a great hemp news segment for you tonight. So, as always, without further ado, here are our dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, our first story tonight in hemp news is about the vote this week, last Tuesday. On Tuesday, November 2nd, voters decided on a number of state and local ballot initiatives specific to marijuana policies. On the nation's only statewide marijuana-centric ballot proposal, Colorado voters rejected Proposition 119, which sought to increase state sales tax on retail cannabis sales. We believe that the proposition, opining that excessive taxation on regulated marijuana products would drive consumers back to the illicit market. In Denver, city voters similarly rejected a separate measure, Ordinance 300, that sought to impose additional municipal taxes on marijuana sales. Local voters also decided on a variety of municipal ballot measures. In Philadelphia, the largest city to vote on marijuana policy in this week's elections, voters overwhelmingly decided in favor of Question 1, which states, quote, "The citizens of Philadelphia call upon the Pennsylvania General Assembly and the governor to pass legislation that will decriminalize, regulate, and tax the use and sale to adults aged 21 and older of cannabis for non-medical purposes." The Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Tom Wolf has campaigned in favor of legalizing the adult use market, but legislative efforts have failed to gain traction in the state's GOP-leaning legislature. As in years past, voters in a number of small Ohio towns decided on municipal proposals to depenalize local marijuana possession. To date, 22 cities in Ohio have removed local penalties for marijuana-related violations. This week, several additional towns joined that list as a majority of voters in the townships of Martins Ferry, Murray City, New Lexington, Ryland, Tiltonsville, and Yorkville decided in favor of marijuana measures. Voters in localities in several other states, including Connecticut, Montana, Michigan, and New Jersey, also decided on a variety of municipal ordinances, primarily with respect to permitting local marijuana retailers and or the imposition of new cannabis-related sales taxes. On a national basis, federal data compiled by the U.S. National Institutes of Health and released this week reports a significant decline in the percentage of young people using cannabis nationwide. Data provided by the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. Most recently, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health finds that marijuana use fell significantly among those ages 12 to 17. Specifically, it reports that the past year's marijuana use among teens fell from 13.2% in 2019 to 10.1% in 2020, a decline of some 25%. Past month marijuana use fell some 20% among the same age group, declining from 7.4% nationwide to 5.9%. Among those ages 18 to 25, marijuana use rates over the past month and the past year remain largely unchanged. Among those aged 26 and older, self-reported cannabis use over either the past month or the past year increased a finding that's consistent with other surveys showing an increase in marijuana use by adults post-legalization, but no parallel rise in underage consumption. Self-reported use of other controlled substances by those ages 12 and older remained largely unchanged between 2019 and 2020. These findings ought to reassure lawmakers that cannabis access can be legally regulated in a manner that is safe, effective, and does not inadvertently impact young people's habits. In September, data published in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Open Network reported, quote, no increases in the odds of past year or past month cannabis use post-recreational cannabis laws enactment among individuals aged 12 to 20 years for all races and ethnicities in a cohort of over 838,000 people residing in the states with adult use cannabis legalization laws. Separate data published in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Pediatrics report that the establishment of adult use marijuana laws is associated with a decreased rate of marijuana use among young people. Well, that's exactly what we said would happen when we advocated legalizing cannabis. From Switzerland, the production, cultivation, trade, and consumption of cannabis will no longer be banned in Switzerland after a commission investigating the drug said the laws should be changed. The Social Security and Health Commission of the Council of States, or the SGKS, said cannabis should be regulated in Switzerland in order to control the cannabis market for better youth and consumer protection. The aim of the SGKS is to eliminate the black market for the drug in Switzerland. A draft law will now be drawn up in the Swiss Parliament. Importantly, it appears that not only will medical use be allowed, but also recreational use will be approved. Other rules, for instance, how individuals can cultivate and produce cannabis for personal use, as well as taxation issues, will be laid out as part of the legal effort. The decision was made this week with 9 out of the body's 11 representatives voting in favor of legalization. The legislation has support from across Switzerland's political spectrum, with 40 members of the National Council signing the initiative. While Switzerland's laws for cannabis production and usage are relatively strict, a movement toward legalization has been brewing for some time. There was a period from 1997 till 2002 where marijuana was legal in Switzerland because of the Droleg initiative, but it was eventually voted down with funding from the United States funding the advertising campaign against it. In Switzerland's outside of the European Union, but Luxembourg is a member of the European Union, and it's poised to become the first EU country to legalize marijuana, with key government agencies putting forward a plan to allow the possession and cultivation of cannabis for personal use. The Ministers of Justice and Homeland Security unveiled a proposal this week which will still require a vote in Luxembourg's parliament, but is expected to pass. It's part of a broader package of reform measures that the agencies are recommending. Under the marijuana measure, adults 18 and older could grow up to 4 plants. However, under the non-commercial model that's being proposed, possessing more than 3 grams in public would still be a civil offense, carrying a fine of $29 to $581, or 25 euros to 500 euros. Currently, the maximum fine per possession is 2,500 euros, which is about $2,900. In terms of access, adults would be able to buy and trade cannabis seeds for their home garden. Luxembourg's Justice Minister Sam Tamson said the government felt it, quote, had to act, end quote, and characterized the home cultivation policy change as a first step. For now, the country's focusing on legalization within a home setting. Parliament's expected to vote on the proposal in early 2022, and the ruling parties are friendly to the reform. This has been coming a long time, as a coalition of major parties in Luxembourg agreed in 2018 to enact legislation allowing the exemption from punishment or even legalization of cannabis. Meanwhile, in the United States, congressional lawmakers are working to advance legalization. A key House committee, the Justice Committee, recently approved a bill to end marijuana prohibition, and Senate leadership is finalizing a separate reform proposal. In Mexico, a top senator said this week that lawmakers could advance legislation to regulate marijuana in the coming weeks. The Mexican Supreme Court has already ruled that adults cannot be criminalized over possession or cultivation, but there's currently no program in place to provide access. In Italy, Italian activists on Thursday formally turned in about 630,000 signatures for a referendum to legalize the personal cultivation of marijuana and other psychoactive plants and fungi like psilocybin mushrooms. The referendum question was first filed in September, and the reform campaign has now submitted more than 500,000 signatures that they hope will qualify the measure to go before Italian voters in early 2022. Part of the reason activists were able to gather the volume of signatures so quickly is a policy change that allowed them to collect signatures online instead of in person only. There's still some steps in the process before the issue can be placed before voters, however. Now that the petitions have been turned in to the Supreme Court of Cassation, the body will have 30 days to ensure that they're valid. Then the petition will be handed off to the Constitutional Court, which will determine whether the referendum is legal and can proceed. The latter court will look into whether the measure would conflict with Italy's constitution, the country's fiscal system, or international treaties to which Italy is a party. Advocates are confident they limited the scope of the proposed reform enough to meet the legal standard. The measure is fairly unique compared to the U.S. ballot initiatives that have been enacted. The Italian proposal would fully end criminalization of growing cannabis, but it would maintain a current decriminalization fine on possessing and using it. Should the referendum make the ballot, a simple majority would be required to have it enacted. Separately, Italy's House of Justice Committee advanced a separate reform last month that would decriminalize small-scale home cultivation of marijuana for personal use. Here in Oregon, an Oregon cannabis company has to pay a $100,000 fine over a labeling error following a 2-year battle with the State Liquor and Cannabis Commission, or the OLCC. Luminous Botanicals maintains that the error was an honest mistake and plans to petition for a judicial review of the fine, which is the maximum penalty when allowed to do so. Kevin Jacoby, an attorney representing Sally Allwright, the owner of Luminous Botanicals, said, quote, "The 6-figure penalty for what amounts to an unintentional mistake only serves to discourage people in the illegal industry from going legal," end quote. An Oregon cannabis company must pay a $100,000 fine. And so hopefully the OLCC, though, defended the $100,000 fine, arguing that it's a measured and reasoned application of the authorized legislation and applicable rules, which takes into account matters of deterrence and the significant but largely unmeasurable risk posed by improperly labeled and potentially completely unlabeled marijuana products to consumers, children, and the public at large, end quote. In April, the OLCC imposed a $10,000 fine on Cura Partners after it knowingly mislabeled 186,000 vape cartridges, the report said. Our last story tonight is from Washington State. Washington State's Liquor and Cannabis Board, or LCB, announced this week an emergency license suspension of Emerald Flash, an Okanagan-based cannabis cultivator. The suspension, which took effect on Monday, was ordered in the name of public safety following multiple alleged violations of Washington state law. According to the press release from the state, Emerald Flash is accused of diverting cannabis products from the regulated market. The LCB press release says, quote, "On or about September 19, 2021, the licensee was responsible for selling or providing to an unlicensed entity approximately 350 pounds of marijuana flower worth between $700,000 and $1 million, end quote. The emergency license suspension lasts 180 days, and Washington's Liquor and Cannabis Board said that the regulators will pursue the permanent revocation of the license during that time frame. That's the end of our hemp news segment for tonight. If you or a loved one are looking for a recommendation or help find a medical marijuana doctor, we can help you. Or if you have any other questions concerning cannabis or cannabis legalization, give our office a call at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Thanks for watching. Now we have our interview with Mike Bifari in Argentina. Help us restore hemp. Good night. I'd like to welcome back to the show my friend Mike Bifari, who's in the hills outside of Cordoba, Argentina right now. Welcome back, Mike. How is it? How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm doing fine. I'm doing just great. Here in the middle of the spring here
Right.
in the south hemisphere.
So you're just planting your plants now there.
Yes, yes.
So you're now an Argentinian medical marijuana patient.
That's correct. I have my card.
And so you're one of the first Argentinians to have that, right? It's a brand new program.
Exactly. I'm one of the first 20,000, you know.
And so tell us what you can do with your medical marijuana card.
I have a medical marijuana card that I did entirely through the web, and it allows me to carry on with me 40 grams of dry flowers, about six jars of 30 ml of hemp oil.
All right. Well, that's quite a lot of oil and plenty of cannabis to get you through a couple of weeks.
I'm allowed to grow 9 plants flowering the whole year, and then an unlimited amount of vegetative stage plants.
Well, that's great. That's a lot better than we have here in Oregon. We have certain rules about each patient that can have less than 2 feet tall, which is about 2/3 of a meter, and just 36 of those, and 12 that are taller than 2 feet or 2/3 of a meter. So, and is that working out well for you?
Yes, absolutely. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's no problem. I mean, it's not perfect, but you know, it's better. It's better than I mean, it has always been for decades a big struggle for the safe access. You know, and this current government made these steps forward in order to put things, you know, available for the patient.
That's great.
So I'm very happy with it, you know. I'm okay.
Patients are there now across, this is for the whole nation of Argentina, right? Like America, yes. We have it state by state, but it's not legal federally. But you have it across the whole country of Argentina, which is just a little bit smaller than America.
Yes, this is federally.
Yeah. So how many patients are there now?
I'm not sure. Thousands, you know. You know, the system has been overloaded, you know. It has been overwhelmed. So now there's a lot of, they put you in a waiting list, you know. I mean, they're all gonna pass and be patients, but you gotta be a little patient because the system is kind of narrow.
Right, right.
I think that like many governments, they have no idea when they start handling the cannabis issue. You know, the authorities, many of the authorities don't have an idea what they're dealing with. You know.
Right.
And they underestimate. They underestimate the potence of this movement. This is my sensation. I don't think they do it on purpose, but they underestimate what's going to happen once you liberate the plant. This, you know, this all types of businesses arising, and people go crazy because, you know, it's a big success. So when the plant arrives to a place, it's a big success for everybody.
So talking about the business is starting to boom. You and I are both speakers and judges at 2 different cannabis events over the next month. There's the one in Chaco, the state of Chaco, which is an Argentinian state in the northern part of Argentina, and it's in the town of Resistencia. And
Resistencia.
Name of the event, the Industria Cannabis?
Yes, and medical cannabis and Industrial Hemp.
Uh-huh.
That's the name of the event, the expo. Um, yes, these are very particular times because this is a small province. I mean, it's not small, it's big, like the whole Argentina is huge, but it's poor, it's not, it's mainly indigenous, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's in the north of the country, almost border with Paraguay. In the 19th century, we had a war with Paraguay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, everything was orchestrated by the British.
I see. Yeah.
Because Paraguay was getting really independent in the industrial way.
I understand that Asuncion was a very big center, even akin to Buenos Aires in 100 years ago.
Yes.
And
exactly.
Asuncion is right on the border with Argentina. The national capital of Paraguay is right there, very close to Chaco.
Yes, this is true. This is exactly right. So Chaco has a lot of history that has to do with the war, probably, Corrientes, which is the province of my friend here, Mariano, is next door to Chaco, and they were both involved in the war. So it was called the Triple Alliance War, It was Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina against Paraguay.
I see. And
they destroyed completely Paraguay,
Uh-huh.
And Paraguay was left with no men. They had no men,
So it was very deadly for them. Their army wiped out.
Everything was orchestrated by the British because because of the market. The Paraguay was getting independent in the items they were producing.
What do they produce there now? What is it that's produced there?
This was the main reason. They were already having railroads, and they were dealing with steel,
Mm-hmm.
So they were really advancing very quickly and independent from the rest.
Yeah. Well, it also borders the Andes to the west, and so there's a lot of minerals. I know there's a lot of copper and other minerals in those mountains that they could access, and they're still mined heavily today.
Yes, absolutely, that's true. Yeah, all that part of the Andes is very rich in minerals, Even Bolivia, Paraguay, they were all rich. So this is very exciting for the Argentine cannabis movement. I believe that this is the reason why they are organizing a small little cup. This is going to be like a promotion day. Promotion of cannabis and all the benefits it has. It's like a medical cannabis cup. So, and people like it. That's why they do it. There's no other reason, because people like it. And but the thing is that because this is a province that it's not really in the middle of the Argentine culture of cannabis. Mainly the culture, which is really big in Argentina, but mainly in the big cities like Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires has 25 million people. So Córdoba, Rosario, the big metropolis, right?
Marches for cannabis in Buenos Aires. What's the most people that have shown up for the marijuana march in Buenos Aires?
Yes. Oh, the marches gather like 200,000 people.
Yeah, 200,000. It's amazing. 200,000 people are in the streets of Buenos Aires demanding cannabis, and that's not the only one. There's also marches in
several in every province they have one.
Right, and they're big too.
Yeah. In some provinces more than others, right? Like if you go to Santa Fe, where Rosario is,
Yeah.
Rosario is like the second city or the third city of the country. So maybe 50,000 people gather around Rosario, but I don't think how many people gather around Corrientes or Chaco. Which these provinces up in the north So I think it's a great idea that we move all the cannabis culture to the interior, to inside the country, where people, mostly indigenous, can learn. They can learn about the production. They can learn about the benefit, and you never know, but you might create an idea of job creating thing. So this is what we're pointing out.
This
I mean, we want to do this. We want to. We know that hemp can be a solution for these small farms and for these small towns where they can produce in plains. Argentina has a lot of plains and good soil, so we're trying to promote the industry even among the small ones.
So this town that it's in, Resistencia, is the capital of Chaco, and it has about
Yeah.
300,000 people. Is what I've seen.
Yes.
So they put together a really nice video advertising the event, very advanced in their graphics, and so it's going to be at a city conference center, kind of dome building, I think it said. Do you know?
Exactly. Yeah. For example, the place where the conferences are going to be held, it has a capacity for 1,000 personas.
I see.
And I believe, the governor is going to give the kickoff starting,
The governor of Chaco.
Yes.
All right.
So they're promoting cannabis now.
So
and
the hemp
Colorado,
and the governor of Colorado also kicks off the NOCO hemp conference, which is the biggest one in the United States.
Nice.
But so it's very similar in terms of that. Maybe we can form some kind of alliance between the one in Argentina and the one in America.
Yeah. Many provinces are they're creating. These provinces are creating these companies that they use as an umbrella to contract other companies to grow cannabis. They're doing this in Jujuy, another province in the north, and they're doing it also in San Juan. San Juan is a province in the borderline with the Andes, and I believe San Juan can produce good quality hemp for oil, for medical oil, because the conditions of San Juan are very similar to Afghanistan or to maybe Northern California.
Yeah. Well, any place you can grow good grapes, make good wine, you can also make good cannabis in terms of growing flowers, Sensimilla flowers.
And San Juan is famous for their wine. They have good quality wine in San Juan.
Mendoza, they're very famous there.
Yes, absolutely. So in one side of the Andes, you have Chile with good wine, and in the other side of the Andes, you have San Juan and Mendoza, both competitions with Chile, actually, in the international market.
So going back to this event in Chaco, do you know what the itinerary is? Well, I mean, there's going to be this cup. The cup was just announced days ago. Up until then, it was kind of a conference for industry and academics, I believe.
Yes, I'm not sure. I don't have the schedule right here. I believe it's the official schedule is not released yet. But I think there's an organization working really, they're on the topic, and I believe there's several people working on this now. The people from the Confederación Canábica, Cannabis Confederation, that's the name of the organization, and they are quite a few, and they are working very, intensively. Yes.
Well, it's an honor to be invited.
I've seen it because, a few days ago, these people were traveling from La Rioja, which is another province, right? and they passed near my town, and they had a problem with the car, so I invited them to my place, So the organizers. So the three of the main organizers were here with me. We had lunch together here.
I see. So it's a 3-day event on the 19th,
Yes,
20th, and 21st of November this month.
exactly.
And
Yes, that's correct.
we'll be there. And then starting on the 3rd of December, the Copa del Sol in Lima, Peru starts. The
Yeah.
next 2 days, there's Expo Cannabis Peru. And so it's
Okay.
standing
Before,
third Copa del Sol, but the first Expo Cannabis.
right. Before we start with Peru, let me tell you this, Paul. I believe you know me, right? You know me. We've been working together. For you, I think it's very exciting because it's like maybe going in a time machine. It's like I mean, specifically talking about the cannabis situation, right?
Right.
These people, many of these people are just discovering things now,
Sure.
So I believe that for you it might be exciting and even it's fun because you've been in the industry for so many decades already, and it's virtually like a time machine. It reminds you when you started yourself, probably.
Yeah.
And so it's important, the role that we're having on this. I'm speaking for myself, even because I do have these sensations I'm describing to you.
Yeah.
Like because I've already been to the States, I've been to the Netherlands. I've been around, and I've been around the cannabis industry. So it's not surprising me. It's not that it's surprising me, but I understand that these people are way behind. Even the government people, they just are completely unknowledge about the subject. So it's exciting, to build up this international bridge that we're trying to build, and download all the culture that you guys been producing and been building for years with all these heroes, like Jack Hare, or many people. Dennis Perron, right? I mean, there's so many heroes. LV Musica, Paul Stanford, Don Wershafter. These are all, for me, they're heroes, and I feel for many of these people I mentioned to you, I feel that we're a big international family trying to spread the word, and it's exciting that we're invited to these remote places in the middle of nowhere where people also want to hear about cannabis.
Yeah. I had never heard of Chaco, and I had never heard of Resistencia last month. So now I'm going. I mean, of course, I had heard of Paraguay. I know that that's Argentina, but I didn't know about the different states that. Well, you and I traveled from Buenos Aires to Mendoza and over the Andes into Chile, and then back to Uruguay and Buenos Aires again back in 2015. So I know that area, but I had never heard of Resistencia. And
Oh, America is so fascinating, right? The landscapes and the nature, right? It's absolutely unbelievable. So we're in the middle. I feel a privilege to be able to travel and to spread the word.
Me too. It's a blessing, and I appreciate it too. It's a great honor to be invited to these events and be able to talk about our knowledge and our history. And it's an honor for them to invite us. And pay our flights. It's expensive to go there to Argentina and Peru. So and put us up and treat us in such a nice way. We get to try all their cannabis too, which is good.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And all South America is the same, all it's we're way behind the States. We're way behind. I don't know. Maybe I can say 20 years, 30 years, 15 years behind. I don't know. But we're behind in what many states have developed in the United States,
Yeah. Well, I can tell you,
what has
I've seen a lot of progress in going to Colombia over the past 5 years. I've seen they've made great progress, and I've seen that progress as well in Mexico. I haven't been back to Argentina in 6 years, so or 5 years, but or maybe six. Yeah, but it'll be nice to at least come back and see this this area that, like I said, I wasn't even aware of a few months ago. A couple months ago, I'd never heard of.
All right. So let's move to Peru now. So it's a little bit up north Chaco, right? So over the
City.
Pacific.
Lima is famous for its food and its seafood. And
Yes.
I stopped in Lima on an airplane flight one night. I had a 5-hour layover. So I caught a taxi and went to the beach and ate a meal and just barely made it back onto the flight to go home. But so I've been to Lima, but it was the middle of the night and it was dark. And I could see the ocean down below, but
Right. Okay, so let me tell you this about Peru.
Lima?
For industrial purposes, cannabis arrived to South America in 1545
Right.
in
Where you and I went and made a video about the arrival there in San Felipe and the Central Valley of Ancash.
That's correct. Okay, but 20 years after that, in 1565, right, it arrived to Peru.
Okay. And it was
So many a couple of 100 years after this, we're invited to a medical cannabis congress organized for doctors.
Right.
And in the middle of that, they will have a cup.
Right.
Yeah. So everything is kind of mixed up, because I know there's medical cannabis cups like that. I went to one in California, San Francisco. I think it was organized by High Time. Yeah. But most of the cups are kind of recreational.
They are
not.
Now. When I first, when I won several awards, it was in a medical cup, but it's before recreational. So only it was. So I've got some trophies, as you know, from medical cups only. But I was never a judge. I just entered my flowers and was a contestant. So recently, you and I have been judges, starting for me in Copa del Rey in Bogota back 5 years ago.
Yes, that was fun. Yeah. So the idea of the cup, of this competition, of this contest, sometimes it has different purposes, different objects, and different goals. For example, I believe that for some advanced growers, it might be a competition when you're advanced. But maybe when you bring this event, this contest to small places, the people just want to gather. They don't want the competition. They want to gather to meet with other colleagues, mainly, and to learn. People want to learn. People want to learn what how you grow it. We're all talking about small scale growing, right? This is not big scale growing. This is personal or family growers. Yeah. So I believe that when the industry starts developing, and for example, there will be a market for the purchase of different genetics, because if you're allowed, if you have a medical card, you will you don't have to go to the black market to purchase your genetics. You must have legal access as well. So somebody has to produce it. So when we have these different companies producing in a middle scale level, then we'll have a different competition probably. But now it's just individually or family growers.
Yeah, that's kind of like it was back when I first won those awards, which was like 2007. So 14, 15, 13 years ago. But now we have clones you can buy in marijuana dispensaries. You can buy.
Yes,
especially as a medical patient, I can go and buy high quality clones at a much lower price. I have to drive away, but worth.
Yeah, you know what I want to do. You know my good friend Gato, right?
Barcelona and Colombia.
He's one of he's a hero for me, and because he's from authentic marijuana producer family, in Colombia, the famous marimbero. That if you hear Snoop Dogg, he talks about the marimbero sometimes. So I wanna convince Alex, he's my good friend, that we build a company here in Argentina for the selling of clones, for the selling of genetics. I think I want to do that. I will be pleased to have a company where I can send delivery clones all over the country for medical patients. That would be really cool.
Right. Well, that's one. There are businesses that do that.
Yes, exactly. There's a bunch of opportunities that will be arising because once you open the door, there's consequences.
Yeah. Well, we're creating lots of jobs here.
I have many friends in the States. My good friend, not Alison Margolin, but Lynette Shaw.
Yeah, in Cincinnati.
You know what Lynette told me was that when in 1990, because medical cannabis was approved, I believe in California in 1996, right? But then in 1998, 2 years after that, you had the 420 guidelines, and in all that process, Lynette Shaw told me that sometimes you've got to be in both sides of the desk, like you got to help the state to understand how it works.
Excuse me, Lynette Shaw. She's at the Marin Cannabis Co-op there in Marin County, Northern California.
But her example makes sense for me here because it's this process of making the law work and putting it in place and putting in the guidelines and then put it to work. That takes that people work together as a team, even if you represent the government or the state and I represent the organization, we got to get together to put it to work. There's no other way. So hers was a great example for me. I've seen it here, I've seen what she meant.
In Peru, who are the people who are putting this event together in Peru?
Okay. So I had a lunch with Pancho, a good friend Pancho from Peru, and Dr. Alberto Galloso. Dr. Alberto Galloso was or still is the president of the commission that is in charge by the Senate to change the cannabis law.
In Peru or Argentina?
No, in Peru. We had lunch with Donnie Wirtschafter and I. We had lunch with Dr. Alberto Galloso, which is the president of the commission involved in changing the cannabis law. So his son, which is a doctor, Galloso, as well, is organizing this event for the medical, for all the doctors of Peru.
I see.
So this is a 2-day event exclusively for physicians that will, I believe they changed the law or they're working on it, but this is an opening for the doctors to get aware of what's going on with the cannabis,
Right. Okay. So
Yeah. So I think, I'm going, I told Pancho that I would love to talk about the apothecary area, which you're very familiar
right.
with. And you know that I've been working side by side with Donnie for a long time now.
The CannabisMuseum.com.
Exactly.
And I've sold my collection to Donnie and his museum, financed by ultimately failed legal
amazing.
battle.
I have, we made a little hotel in Colombia, and we made a little museum. It's a guest house museum,
Right.
And this is in Colombia, and we have a little cannabis museum. And Donnie also donated to this little museum a little collection that he found in South America about these old bottles, about the apothecary era. I love to talk about that. I think it will be quite interesting for young physicians who have no knowledge of the cannabis.
Yeah, it'd be ideal.
Yeah.
Good. So I have not had much communication with the folks in Peru since then, but I'm looking forward to going. I know they're invited both Teresa and I. So again, very grateful that that's happening as well. So
yeah. It's going to be great to see Trisha and you again in Peru,
I'll see you there in Argentina first.
First we'll be in Chaco. This is going to be an adventure for both of us. I've never been to Chaco myself. It's like a different country,
Yeah, for you, being north means it's a warmer climate. And so it's kind of like going from, in the United States, going from like the Midwest there in Cordoba, going to Florida.
Mississippi.
Yeah, lower Mississippi.
Exactly, yes.
Do they grow citrus fruit there?
Yes. Yes, they grow fruit, yeah. Mucho, ¿no? Yes, a lot of fruit. ¿Por qué decime qué se cultiva? ¿Qué fruta? Naranja. Orange, lemon, tangerine, citrus, watermelon.
Things in warm months, I see.
Yeah. Strawberries a lot.
Okay.
Arándanos. No, arándanos no. Tucumán. Yeah, I heard an article about these people producing arándanos, with arándanos, these small fruits. It's like berries.
Yeah,
berries.
Raspberries, blackberries, yeah.
There's several types of berries.
There are. We have a lot of them, and they're interbred in some cases. But so you've been working with the legislature there too, in terms of Argentinian law. What developments are there now in terms of legalization for cannabis and recreational use? We talked about the 200,000 people in the Buenos Aires march. That seems like a lot of political support to me, to have marching through the national capital there in Buenos Aires.
Yes, right now, the government officially introduced the bill, the government, for legalizing medical cannabis that grow in the medium size and big scale size, the regulation for that. But it's not done yet. It has half sanction, when it goes to the Senate or the lower, so it has half of it. So now we're waiting for them to pass it, right? I think it's going to
Is
pass.
that just for medical or is that for recreational?
For cannabis and for industrial hemp,
I see.
both.
And is there anything about
Yeah.
legalization for adults or decriminalization?
No, the government announced that this was the first one, and then there's going to be a second one for recreational.
I see.
But the thing is that
For adult use.
I think it will create jobs. You know, if this legislate in favor of producing cannabis, it's gonna be a big source of job producing.
That's how it's been everywhere here in the United States. It's created. It's the fastest growing industry, and from nothing, 0 to 60 in just a couple of years, turning in revenue for businesses and for tax revenue for local governments and state governments.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, for this law that I'm mentioning to you that is in Congress right now, the government is saying that they want the small groups of growers and the PYMs, the PYM, which means small and medium-sized companies, you know, to get involved. So they're going to encourage this sector of job-creating PYMs to get involved in the cannabis industry. This is what I heard from the government.
I see. Good.
Yeah, and they want cannabis to be part of the entramado productivo nacional. When I spoke to one of the state officials, he told me we want cannabis to be part of the trend of the agriculture producing trend of Argentina.
Well, you know, you've got such a big market there in Argentina for soybeans, and cannabis is very akin to soybean protein. Hemp seed is it produces more digestible protein for humans and more protein per acre than soybeans.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, soybean needs a lot of pesticides and agrotoxics.
Yeah, and cannabis does not.
Yes, that's a big difference for what we're suffering in our world now, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, so I think it's a great opportunity. If this law passes, you know, it's going to create a big source of jobs. Now, yes, I think that we're going forward. You know, after many years with this. You know, we're having national elections in 15 days for deputies. You know, 147 deputies will change. So we'll see what happens. Argentina has a problem. You know, we have a big we heritage from the last government, a big debt. And so, you know, it's you know, these financial crooks and this scams that they do all the time with our poor country.
I know.
You know, the people like that, these international monetary funds. You know, I believe, you know, I'm talking to you like if nobody else is hearing me, right? But I believe these people are crooks. They're criminals.
They are.
Know? Because how can you give such an amount of money to this country when you know in advance that the interest that you're going to charge them, they're not going to be able to make the interest to pay you back. So I feel that it's a type of irresponsibility to do that. You know, why are you doing this? Because you know that they can't pay you back. You know it, you know, and they do it anyway. You know, the last government, they asked for $50,000 million, 50,000. So that's 50 billion, right?
Yeah, billion, I think you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah, $50 billion. And now you know there's a meeting in Europe of the G20, right?
Right.
So the president of Argentina went there to ask them to lower down the interest because we're not going to be able to pay. You're asking 5% interest, just give us 1% per year, and then we'll be able to pay you back. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to pay. And apparently, they're hearing him, you know.
Well, good luck with that. I sure hope they do. It seems that these International Monetary Fund should foster development, not enslavement of people. This austerity idea that they want to push all across the world. They've got to be austere because of their debts. You know,
it's just not fair, you know.
No. Can't answer that. So,
Okay.
So you're going to Chaco, or are you driving, or are you going to fly from Cordoba?
I'm flying from Buenos Aires to Chaco.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're meeting up with our friend Don Ewart.
Yes.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I just want to thank you, and I'm glad we're going to meet soon. And I want to send a big hug for everybody there, for my brothers in the great United States of America. And God bless America, and God bless America's weed.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mike. You have a good one.
Okay. We love you. Thank you.
All right. See you in Chaco on 18th. I'll be very tired.
Okay. Big hug for everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
For Red and Bill. Big hug for Red and Bill.
All right. They're listening. So restore him.
Restore him. Hemp.
Hooray.
Hooray.
Argentina's annual marijuana march took place this year as some international attitudes to the plant appear to be on the point of changing from repression to limited acceptance as a medicine and tolerance as a recreational pastime. No more imprisonment for cultivating, no more raiding our houses, kicking down our doors, stealing the plants, taking away the medicine from our children. No more of that, and no more repression and censorship on YouTube. The Argentine Congress legalized the use of cannabis for medical purposes last year, but activists say far from